Hello. Thank you for taking the time to watch our Spirituality and Inclusiveness in PEO video. In recent years, as our Executive Board of International Chapters started discussing diversity in PEO, it quickly became clear that a misunderstanding regarding the role of religion in PEO has left some sisters feeling uncomfortable and excluded, and could complicate efforts to support and engage existing members and attract new ones. PEO is important in the lives of our members. We love our sisterhood and have an emotional connection to each other. This love exemplifies the importance of being sure all sisters are provided accurate information on this topic. While PEO has some Christian elements and traditions, it is not a Christian or religious organization. As outlined in the PEO Sisterhood Commitment to Inclusion and Belonging, we strive to achieve inclusion and a sense of belonging for all members, regardless of their religious affiliation, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, age, abilities, and socioeconomic status. Our membership brochure states, as members, we respect one another's political and religious views and activities. These statements emphasize inclusiveness and respect for a member's religion of choice, yet confusion still exists. It was over 150 years ago that 7 young women, after some were excluded from joining a club on campus, started a society where they all felt welcome and had a sense of belonging. Out of these humble beginnings, PEO has grown into an international sisterhood with nearly 5,700 chapters. PEO did not spring into a fully formed organization that January day in the music room at Iowa Wesleyan University, but instead gradually matured. It grew into adulthood right along with its founding members, and it is still evolving today. Some members insist that our current meetings are just like those the founders first conducted, but this is simply not the case. PEO meetings have evolved over the years, just as our organization's purpose has evolved. At our beginnings, the purpose was friendship and mutual support. While that basic tenet of loving concern for our sisters has not changed and remains steadfast, today our mission statement reads, PEO is a philanthropic organization where women celebrate the advancement of women, educate women through scholarships, grants, awards, loans, and stewardship of Cotty College, and motivate women to achieve their highest aspirations.
The fact that our founders were white Protestants was reflective of the Christian campus environment and their circle of friends in the 1860s. Because their churches were an important commitment in their lives, it was natural for them to incorporate those influences into their new society. However, the founders did not go further to duplicate the role of their churches. The early goals of the founders led to a statement in the PEO Articles of Incorporation that defined our purposes as exclusively educational and charitable. Notably, our qualification as a nonprofit under the Internal Revenue Service Code is not as a religious organization. In the earliest constitution adopted at the very first business meeting held on January 23, 1869, 2 days after the founding, there is no mention of the word Christian, church, or anything that could be construed that this was a society intended only for Christian members. The October 13, 1893 Constitution, which was the first printed constitution, stated a candidate for membership must be a believer in the supreme being, but does not reference a need to be a Christian or to believe in the Christian God. It wasn't until 1919 that an amendment to the Constitution was passed to require a belief in God, stating any person recommended for membership in the sisterhood must acknowledge her belief in God. It is important to note that many faiths in the world refer to a belief in God. In 1920, prior to serving as president of Supreme Chapter, Ola Babcock Miller addressed the Iowa State Chapter. She stated that PEO is founded on no religious creed, so it is entirely non-sectarian, which means not involving or relating to a specific religion. With that foundation, PEO continued to evolve with practices consistent with the times and practices of its members, and never intended the Christian religion to be a focus or a requirement in order to advance our mission of helping women achieve their educational objectives. PEO's ceremony of initiation and many of our practices have strong Christian elements, yet they haven't been there from the start. Much of today's initiation ceremony was approved in 1882. And in defining the points of the star with reinforced messages, the writers used scriptural references with which they were most familiar. The core values of faith, love, purity, justice, and truth are the constants of our organization and were also adopted in 1882. These values are also embedded in many of the world's religions. We cannot know if our founding sisters recited the Lord's Prayer at their meetings. We do know that during the first 30 to 40 years of our organization, some chapters adopted the informal practice of saying the Lord's Prayer in lieu of more formal devotion when the chaplain was not present for a meeting. By 1912, reciting the Lord's Prayer was an official part of opening exercises.
PEO is an increasingly diverse organization that includes women of various faiths and ethnicities. In 2011, one question in an all-member survey asked about religious affiliation. In addition to Christianity, respondents identified as practicing Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, or as Unitarian Universalist. A number of respondents also indicated that they did not have a formal religion. It is important to ensure that our organization's culture welcomes and supports this diversity and understands our efforts to move towards a more inclusive PEO. Diverse organizations consistently outperform organizations that are not diverse. They are more creative and innovative and are better at solving problems and meeting goals. An article in the National Council of Nonprofits stated, when members who shape the values and activities of a nonprofit come from a wide array of backgrounds, they bring unique perspectives that influence how the nonprofit approaches its mission in more inclusive and innovative ways. An ongoing emphasis on inclusion and belonging ensures that PEO remains a vibrant, flexible, and relevant organization, one that reflects our society. Stella Clapp wrote in Out of the Heart, the magnificent concept of PEO will always be limited by the human limitations of PEOs themselves. But to remain static is not the nature of PEO. Like a person, we are always in a state of becoming. It is more important than ever that we are clear about where we are going and who we want to become.
In our ever-changing and expanding world, PEO's continued growth and evolution is not only necessary, but something our 7 forward-thinking founding sisters would look upon favorably and welcome. The following quote in 1904 by one of our founders, Frank Rhodes Elliott, makes this very clear. And will you allow me to say a word about precedents, about what has been? Do not try to preserve them because of sentiment, for new times demand new needs. Evolution and growth mean life to organizations as well as individuals. True loyalty to those gone before you in PEO, to the founders, if you will, lies in improving the unfinished structure they bequeathed to you, for PEO is only yet in its beginning. Our PEO membership currently has wonderful women of different faiths, but some of our rituals and traditions are not inclusive. There is an important distinction between being inclusive and requiring assimilation. Inclusivity asks that we accept each other as our true selves. Assimilation, on the other hand, requires diverse sisters to adopt practices that are not consistent with their individual truth and does not allow us to learn from and celebrate our differences. Requiring our non-Christian sisters to assimilate, as opposed to being their authentic selves, will hamper our sisters' potential. The mission of PEO is to advance educational opportunities for women, and we will be much stronger as an inclusive organization. This isn't a new direction. A resolution passed at Convention of International Chapter in 2009 to establish a special committee to review literary, religious, and historical elements of our meetings. The charge of this committee, known as the Special Committee to Study PEO Ceremonies and Meeting Procedures, included the preparation of suggestions to preserve the intent of our traditions, to express core PEO values, and to be inclusive of all whom we welcome as sisters. If we continue to align PEO rituals with our mission of being an educational and philanthropic organization, inviting women with diverse spiritual beliefs will be an act of inclusion.
Some members find it challenging to invite non-Christian friends into PEO, fearing the friend will feel out of place. However, we already have many non-Christian members in PEO. The answer really lies with your chapter and its ability to ensure each sister feels a sense of belonging. When the chapter counseling committee meets with a potential member in the pre-acceptance counseling session, they explain that one must send in a written acceptance stating a belief in God. It is also helpful to explain that some of our traditions have a Christian foundation. Being open and transparent with a prospective member about the current state and practices of the sisterhood and how things evolved over the years is the only way to treat her with respect and dignity. That way she can decide whether she feels comfortable joining PEO with a full understanding of who we are and what she can expect. 2 amendments adopted in 2021 allow our practices to be much more welcoming to women of many faiths. Reciting the Lord's Prayer is now optional for chapters, and an initiate has the option to raise her hand or to place her hand on the Bible during the ceremony of initiation. We can all help our sisters feel like they belong by taking advantage of the flexibility allowed in our meetings. There are many meaningful devotions that could be used in addition to or in lieu of reading scripture from the Bible and reciting the Lord's Prayer. Our objects and aims in opening ode already lend a spiritual tone to our meetings. Our beautiful PEO prayer can be supplemented by a spiritual reading from a variety of sources. There is also the option of silent prayer and reflection at a meeting so that all sisters can individually pray or reflect.
Most of you will appreciate this clarification regarding religion and PEO. Others might find it more difficult to accept and may not be able to embrace it immediately. It is understandable if some members think, but why should we change? We're doing what we've always done. The fact is, as shown by the history of PEO, evolving has always been part of our DNA, which is why our sisterhood continues to exist today. We hope no sister feels threatened by a deepening commitment to welcoming women from various faiths. Some might think, if PEO isn't Christian, I don't know if I want to belong. We would ask, have you ever belonged to PTA, band booster groups, or a public library association? Virtually all of us have worked with and been involved in groups not specifically identified as Christian, and PEO is no different. The meaning of our letters, as one of the few things that go back to our founders' era, has remained unchanged since 1869. Our mission has universal appeal, and we should be proud for making a difference in the lives of so many women over the years through financial aid. The core values of PEO remain the same, and we might discover a renewed appreciation for the meaning of our letters and the love of our sisters that are so much a part of our organization. Growing PEO through inclusion of diverse sisters will be a huge gain for PEO. It will strengthen both our membership and our educational and philanthropic work, and ensure that our sisterhood remains relevant in today's world. The commitment we make when reciting the objects and aims is the basis for knowing that each sister shares a common purpose, interest, and set of core values. This inclusive vision, tracing back to our founders, will promote the growth and vibrancy necessary to keep our sisterhood thriving.